things out, go through things, but it's awfully dark early, isn't it? And it's nice to have company at that time of day. I did have one very awkward tenant. I do try to be fair, but she just wouldn't move out. Even though I've become extremely unhappy with the way that she was breaking the lodger's agreement with regard to the use of lights in her room. I do like them to turn off the lights that are in the part of the room that they're not actually in at that time. I insist on that, otherwise I can't keep the rent so low. It's very difficult. And it makes me unhappy to sit and watch a tenant on the video monitor, that I have a monitor in each room, just to ensure proper conduct in the house. They don't actually know about them, but that's part of the tenant's agreement I have with myself, and it does make me unhappy to sit there and watch them breaking this house rule. Now, this girl, in my view, was also having too many guests. I don't mind any number of guests in what I call moderation. Most of my tenants don't actually have so many, as it happens. Certainly overnight guests are extremely rare, but I do have a rule with myself again, that if they do have an overnight guest, then I'll turn the video off. But it does seem to me that most of them prefer to masturbate. But this girl had what I felt was one too many guests, and she really wasn't fitting in with the house in general. She was creating a bad atmosphere. So I told her, quite civilly, but she refused to take the hint. And I am extremely civil in all my dealings with my tenants. There's only been one unpleasant incident in 27 years, and that was when I had a chap who'd been in the Secret Service, and he used to sit in his room, stare out the window straight onto a brick wall all day, and he'd actually asked for a room with a view of a brick wall, and I'd given him one. I mean, he was harmless enough, but he used to slide down the banisters in quite a disruptive way, and I thought in the end the best thing would be if I shot him. And I did that with the cooperation of the Home Office. You know, they had a lot of trouble with him as well. They tried to scrub his brain with a wire brush, but you can't be sure. So he ended up taking an assisted dive down the stairwell. I mean, but that was in the 60s. You couldn't do that now. I wasn't going to do that with this girl. I was being very civil with this girl, but she wasn't moving out. And eventually I gave her an ultimatum, and I said, if you're not out by next weekend, I will have to evict you formally. And she said, oh, I have my rights. And I thought, well, we're getting into a bit of a mess here. So I just waited until the Sunday night, and she hadn't gone, and I could see she was asleep on the video monitor. So I went down to her room. I do have a key for each room, just for the odd occasion I have to sluice them out. And I went in and I tiptoed to the bottom of her bed and lifted up her bedclothes and took out a scalpel, a very sharp scalpel. I used to be a medical student, and I slivered the thinnest possible layer of skin from the bottom of her foot. And it just came away like a sort of silk insole. And I took it out and I put it under a shrub. And the next morning I looked at her, she looked at me, and there was no kind of vibe at all, you know, it was all very pleasant. And the next night I did exactly the same thing. Took another very thin sliver of skin off the bottom of her foot, and I did that again and again and again every night, until 3 months later I went in there and she wasn't there at all. And I went out and I looked under the shrub and she wasn't there either. And that's how I get rid of any tenant who doesn't want to leave now.